These are 7 things I hate about my new 2022 GR86. And that was the shift indicator because I'm in break-in and I don't want to go over 4,000 RPM. Now, I own a 2013 Scion FR-S. I've driven it as my only car for 9 years. And I just got this about a month ago. And it's been mostly good. It's mostly an upgrade, but there are a lot of things that aren't nearly as good on this car compared to the first gen that for some reason people aren't talking about. I feel like maybe it's because they haven't compared them back to back, or they just, I don't know what it is. So the first thing is actually the steering. A lot of car reviewers are saying that the steering on this car is amazing and fantastic, and if I'm being honest, that makes me question their judgment on steering racks, because is this a hydraulic rack? Obviously not. It's an EPS, and as an EPS you kind of need to lower your expectations a little bit. But as an EPS, there's this weird deadness in the center right here where it has a lower weighting. Once you turn more, it weights up slightly. So in the center there's less weighting, and it doesn't quite return to neutral as other cars do. So it's a strange feeling, and initially when I first drove a 2022 BRZ, it was Fenton's son from the Zygreen's channel. He had tracked his and he got an alignment and I think dropped a wheel. So we thought that maybe it was due to some damage on track or something that happened that made his steering funky. And then I drove a premium 2022 GR86. And in that one, it felt better. But the reason I realized is because I was driving it on a windy road that had very little straight sections. But when you're driving it day to day, most of the time, you're driving it relatively straight. The roads are relatively straight. On the highway, it's very little change in direction, such that this weirdness in the center it bothers me, man. It's actually a pretty big deal. It's a big downgrade from the first gen. The first gen loaded up better. The first gen had better feel. The first gen, I mean, they're both equally accurate, but the first gen had a much more natural steering response than the second gen. And again, if you feel like the second gen is the same steering as the first gen, then if I'm being honest, you probably don't care much about steering. You probably don't have like a very nuanced or refined, I guess, taste of steering. That sounds very judgmental. Everyone has different preferences, and I care about steering more than the average car enthusiast. Other car enthusiasts care more about the engine than me, right? So I don't care about the engines as much. It doesn't bother me if a car has a crappy engine, as long as I can push it hard and rev it out. So just keep that in mind. The steering, if you care about steering in this car, is a definite downgrade from the other ones. The second thing I hate is the fake engine noise. Now, again, like I said before, different car enthusiasts have different preferences and tastes, and for me, I care about sound. I care about sound a lot, and when you have this piped-in sound that is harsh, there's this weird, like, you can tell when it's on because it sounds very harsh to the ears. It almost like hurts my ears a little bit. It sounds very unpleasant, and there's this thing called sibilance, right, where you have this harshness of higher frequencies. I think that's what's going on. So I went to the side dash and I just unplugged it. Now the car's a lot better. Some people say on track you can't hear the engine without the fake engine noise, but I don't know, man. When you go on track mode and you have this and you have the shift light and the light, the upper part of that circle, actually the whole thing lights up to indicate that you're getting near red line. That should be enough. I haven't tracked this car yet, but we'll see at that track day if not having enough engine noise is going to be fine, or if that's going to be an issue. Next up is the Rev Hang, and this was an issue in the first gen, and it's still an issue in the second gen. I've seen some cars that have even worse Rev Hang, especially some turbocharged cars, but it's probably an emissions related thing. With a tune, you can probably improve it a little bit, but it's just kind of annoying that, you get used to it, but in day-to-day driving, you need to be a little bit slower with your shifts, otherwise you get a very slight jerk. Just something to keep in mind, not a huge deal. Next up is the interior space. What a downgrade. I don't know why they reduced the interior space so much. It felt totally unnecessary. The one good thing about interior storage is that they made these water bottle holders deeper, so there's a little bit indentation in the actual door panel such that you can fit a larger bottle like this. In the first gen, I'd have to throw this on the back seat. Everywhere else, the storage has been reduced. Like over here, you used to have a small little shelf where you could put your glass cleaning cloth, your Altoids, whatever you need. That's been removed. In this center storage, there's a lot less space. So in the first generation, you had these 2 water bottle holders plus a little bit of space up here where you could put things like your wallet and whatnot. And now, just with my regular, I mean, I put my keys here, like it's full, and I don't even have that much. I got some hand sanitizer, some like, you know, some floss things, and my keys. You used to have a little panel on the back, a little sleeve over here, where you could put papers. I would put my masks. So I'd fit all my masks back there. Super easy, quick access, and it doesn't take much space. It was perfect for that. And now, no longer have that either. So the lack of interior storage has been a hit to the practicality. I'll probably just have to end up using these rear seats more as a shelf. Not ideal. Definitely not ideal. The next thing I hate is this armrest. So the armrest has this design such that if you have something here, you can't really use this because this is it's too narrow. It's very uncomfortable. It's hitting right on your ulnar nerve, your funny bone, and not ideal. So in the first generation, there was like this Toyota of Canada that had created an armrest you could drill in and install. I drilled it, installed it myself. It looked OEM. It looked great. That one was fantastic, actually. The next thing I hate are these fenders, because on my first generation, I have Arc 8 17x9 wheels and 35 offset. So I figured it would probably work on this car. It works on the front just fine, but on the rear, because of this, we're not actually able to clear it, and we're gonna get rubbing. So I now need to sell those wheels and get new wheels with either a different offset or just different wheels entirely. So kind of annoying that they added this, because it's maybe it's like an aero thing. I'm not sure if it's a style thing. I don't think it really adds much stylistically, but just an annoying new thing they added on this generation that makes it a little bit harder to fit wheels on the back. And finally, the last thing I hate about this 2022 GR86 is the ordering system. So it's not actually about the car, it's about obtaining the car. Subaru allows you to actually place an order for a vehicle, as many car companies do, but Toyota doesn't. Their allocation system says, okay, you get in line, and depending on what the dealership gets, that's what you may get. You can't choose a color, you can't choose a trim, you can't choose a automatic or manual transmission. And that made getting one of these cars annoying as hell. I actually got on 3 lists. One here in Vegas, one in Salt Lake City, Utah, and one in Portland, Oregon. I only got on lists at dealerships that promised MSRP, no markup. And it still took me 7 months to get my car. Granted, I was being picky about color and trim. There were some cars at the beginning that were, they were actually Neptune Blue, but in base level, and I was like, I want the premium. So I wanted premium, 6-speed manual, track bred, or Neptune Blue, and I just couldn't get it for so long until I finally caved and said, all right, fine, I'll do the base Neptune Blue. I don't want to keep waiting. But overall, this is a much better daily driver than the first gen. It's mostly an improvement, a few little nitpicks here and there. Most of the issues I'm talking about are pretty small in comparison, right? Considering the upgrades this car gets with the interior quality, the engine, addressing that massive torque dip. So anyway, guys, I hope you found this useful. Subscribe if you haven't already. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you in that next one.